Hello, everyone. I'm Ava, and tonight I'll be summarizing an action, adventure, horror, sci-fi, thriller movie called Morbius. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The film begins in the foggy, rainy forests and mountains of Costa Rica, where a helicopter drops off a team of scientists in front of the entrance to a dark and eerie cave. At the head of the expedition is a frail and lame man with a pale face, Dr. Michael Morbius. Dr. Morbius suffers from a rare blood disease and has been using crutches to walk since birth, so he orders his team to set up the trap they brought. It is revealed that the cave is home to an unusual species of bats that are stronger and larger than the usual ones. Some are known as vampire bats. When Morbius reaches the cave, he makes a cut on his arm to attract the bats with the scent of his blood. As the doctor raises his hand, hordes of bats emerge from the cave, and his team of scientists get scared and run away. But Morbius is not frightened. He stands still as if waiting for something, as if, for some reason, he is devoid of fear in life, perhaps because he has experienced a darkness that stretches far into the past. It all started 25 years ago in Greece, where we see young Michael, a boy with a disability, lying in a hospital bed. He already knew about his blood disease, and, according to the doctors, he doesn't have much time left. It's unclear whether he is poor or an orphan, or perhaps both. One day, Dr. Nicholas, who takes care of him, introduces him to a new wealthy friend, Lucien, who has the same incurable disease, which, as we learn, kills people at a very young age. He makes a paper bat and gives it to his friend. Michael insists on calling Lucien Milo. He called all his new friends Milo because his first friend was named that. Unfortunately, all of those friends died. Morbius explains to him how their disease works. They have damaged DNA, which makes them need to drink blood 3 times a day. They bond over their shared illness and their desire to be healthy. Some stupid kids outside are making silly noises, mocking and insulting sick children. Michael tells Milo that they are the little ones against many. After some time, Milo's device stops working and he loses consciousness. Morbius quickly uses a spring from his pen to fix the device, and Milo recovers and wakes up. Morbius is an exceptionally intelligent boy, and the doctor is truly impressed by his intelligence. The doctor tells him that he has a gift. Nicholas concludes that Morbius is a genius and arranges for him to attend an exclusive medical school in New York for gifted children. However, Morbius accepts the offer only after Nicholas promises to take care of Milo.
What about Milo?
I'll look after Milo.
I think this part of the film tries to show how deeply Milo and Morbius connected. Before he leaves, Morbius writes a letter to Milo, promising that he will find a cure for their disease. The letter accidentally falls from Milo's hands, and he starts looking for it, only to discover that the mean kids from the nearby school are reading it and mocking him. A group of unruly children starts hitting Milo for fun, but fortunately, Nicholas arrives and drives them away before they can cause serious harm to the sick boy. Despite his serious illness, Morbius manages to graduate with a PhD when he turns 19, thanks to his extraordinary intelligence, and becomes an impressive doctor. He develops synthetic blood that saves countless lives around the world. Everyone admires Morbius, and the King of Sweden wants to award him the Nobel Prize, but he declines it because he discovered synthetic blood by accident while trying to find a cure for his disease. One day, Morbius is working in his laboratory in New York, known as Horizon Lab. For years, he has been trying to treat his blood disease with various experiments. His colleague, Dr. Martin, calls him for a private conversation.
You got a minute?
The doctor criticizes him for not accepting the Nobel Prize, but he doesn't really care. While conducting some tests on him, she asks him about his crazy project of mixing human DNA with bat DNA, which is financed by Milo. Morbius pretends not to know what she's talking about, but Martine discovers Morbius's tank full of Colombian bats. These are some friends the doctor brought from Costa Rica. Mammals. He was even generous enough to make an aquarium for them. The beauty's blood runs cold. These bats are the only mammals on Earth that feed exclusively on blood, so Morbius thinks their special saliva could be the solution to curing his disease. I don't think there's any movie where Adria Arjona is this beautiful. Martine is skeptical about this and worries about the ethics of such an experiment, but Morbius proceeds and tests his new serum on a laboratory hamster. Unfortunately, the poor hamster dies. At that moment, one of Morbius's patients begins to have a seizure, so they rush to her room and have no choice but to induce a coma in order to save her from a potential stroke. When Martine later checks the laboratory, she is surprised to see that the hamster is moving, which means that the serum is actually working. Morbius has finally found the solution. He mixes human blood with the blood of vampire bats and prepares a serum from it. After a successful test on a mouse, Morbius wants to continue and test it on himself. He is confident that he will be able to cure his disease. This part of the story resembles the story of Norman Osborn or the Green Goblin from Spider-Man. A few days later, after preparing the serum, Morbius meets with Milo to share the good news about his breakthrough and ask for more money. We see that Milo comes from a wealthy family and that he is actually the financier of Morbius's experiments. We can tell he has plenty of money, as there are several people in his hallway guarding his sneakers. Dr. Nicholas is still taking care of him. They go for a walk, and Milo tells Michael not to fall in love with the beautiful Martine, because they have to remain disabled forever. He says that love is not a part of their lives. In the park, Michael tells Milo that he has come up with a cure. He then says that he has prepared a serum that will help with their physical disabilities. Since this experiment is illegal, it must be conducted in international waters, and Milo is willing to pay for everything if it means finding a cure. They don't have much time left, and this could be their last chance. They say, "We are few against many." The scene then shifts to international waters, where Morbius is aboard a ship. A couple of people are playing cards. These are probably some criminals Milo hired to guard the ship. Morbius took Martine with him on a journey to international waters to help him. They are in the middle of nowhere.
Human trials.
Morbius manages to create a new, more advanced serum, or as it could also be called, a red bat cocktail, and Martine injects it into his spine. She also ties him down as soon as the serum starts to take effect because his body begins to tremble and go out of control. At that moment, a crew member comes into the lab to check on them. He's just some idiot with stupid jokes. But as they argue, they realize that Michael is no longer there. Martine and the guard enter the isolation room and are shocked when they discover Morbius climbing on the ceiling with a monstrous and terrifying face. The serum is working, and Morbius is now unofficially a vampire. And the guy with the stupid jokes will officially be the first. The guard tries to shoot him, but Morbius moves incredibly fast and leaps onto him to drink his blood, ignoring Martine's pleas to stop. The entire process is very painful, but he has now become a monster, killing and draining the blood of the crew after they attacked him out of fear. He has become extremely fast and gains superpowers. Martine tries to lock him in a cell, but she fails as he jumps around the entire space. Suddenly, an alarm goes off on the ship, and Morbius's sensitive ears hurt so much that he begins to panic and destroy the isolation room. The rest of the security team arrives armed, and Martine tries to stop them, but they push her aside, knocking her unconscious. Morbius exits the room, showcasing his new vampiric powers, which allow him to dodge bullets and move quickly to mercilessly kill the guards. A few survivors flee and lock the doors, but Morbius is now incredibly strong and easily breaks through them. Morbius crawls across the ceiling once again, taking his precious time to pick off the guards one by one and kill them all. When the entire crew is dead and Morbius is sufficiently fed, his bloodlust subsides and his body transforms back into its human form. He rushes to look at himself in the mirror. Nice chest, Doctor. It's clear that he is finally cured. The security camera has recorded everything, but he can't remember what happened. Horrified by his actions, he vomits. Martine is the only one still alive, as she had passed out. He gently covers the beauty with a blanket. Distraught, Morbius deletes all CCTV footage of his experiment, contacts the authorities, grabs the serums, and jumps into the sea. The next morning, 2 FBI agents, Stroud and Rodriguez, arrive on the ship to investigate the crime scene, but Morbius has erased all the security footage and Martine is still unconscious. They make stupid jokes, thinking it will lighten the catastrophic atmosphere. They mention that the bodies are completely drained of blood and the surveillance cameras are gone. The case quickly makes it to the news, which Nicholas and Milo watch from their mansion. We still don't know where Milo got the money for such a place. Maybe he deals weapons on the side.
An arms deal.
100 million rounds of AK-47.
Makes, models, weights.
He has so much that he can pay this guy just to stand there. Michael visits Martine in the hospital, strokes her little hand. He won't eat her because she's too beautiful. He apologizes. Michael, you should have brought her a gift, like some cookies, a drink to mix, or some underwear. Some time later, Morbius returns to the hospital, and after checking on his patients, he goes to the laboratory to test his powers and abilities. He tries different things and discovers that he will need human blood to stay healthy. If he doesn't consume it, he will become physically disabled again.
For the first time in my entire life, I feel good.
He discovers that he now possesses superhuman strength, speed, reflexes, and echolocation like vampire bats. His body soon begins to fail again, so he rushes to the fridge to drink the artificial blood he created, so he can feed without the need for killing. He then begins testing his abilities. He's fast, athletically built, can climb anything, and jump everywhere. Although he is now a monster, he is a good person and does not want to hurt anyone. He begins to understand his body and learns the advantages and disadvantages of the serum he injected into himself. He realizes that over time, this synthetic blood will become useless and that he will have only one choice: to consume human blood. This is something he wants to avoid. He also discovers that he has developed echolocation like a bat, so he tests it by throwing a ball around the room and catching it with his eyes closed. When he enters the bat enclosure, they fly around him with respect, and Morbius feels a connection with them. Interestingly, the bats would tear anyone else apart, but they greet him like their prince, like a king.
They welcome me like a brother.
The artificial blood keeps him stable for 6 hours, but the duration is steadily decreasing, and he knows he will soon need real blood. To test this further, he locks himself in an isolated room. A few hours later, Milo comes to visit and finds him in an extremely weakened state. Morbius, desperate for blood, writes blood with his bloody fingers on the glass. So Milo brings a few bags from the freezer. To reiterate, he locked himself in the room to see how long he could endure without blood. This mirrors what happens when an addict is deprived of their drug. As soon as he feeds, Morbius recovers and becomes strong again, leaving Milo amazed by his friend. Milo notices that Morbius is now much healthier and no longer has trouble walking. Curious, Milo expresses his desire to become healthy too. He asks Morbius about the secret to his miraculous recovery and mentions the serum Morbius had told him about. He asks if the serum actually worked. Milo then says he wants to be normal too and asks Morbius to give him the serum treatment. However, Morbius tells him that he made a mistake and that this cure is actually a curse. He warns Milo not to use the serum, calling it nothing more than a deadly poison that could endanger his life. Morbius explains everything that has happened to him, saying he is now forced to live as a monster, and adds that he will not allow Milo to use the serum. They start arguing, with Milo persistently demanding the serum, but Morbius refuses to give in. Milo continues to insist, pushing Morbius to become aggressive. He yells at Milo and throws him out. Meanwhile, Martine finally wakes up and FBI agents visit her. They are quite certain they've solved the mystery and are convinced that vampires exist. The agents show her disturbing photos of the bodies found on the ship. Imagine the expression on a girl's face when she finds out the guy she loves drinks human blood. Morbius is a suspect because they are aware that the incident occurred on the ship and that he was also present there. However, Martine pretends not to remember what happened that night and continues eating her beans. The detectives give up and leave, saying the typical line, "If you remember anything, you have our number, so call us." She never does. That night, one of Michael's nurses walks through a terrifying hallway. She says hello into the darkness, like a good sacrificial character. For good measure, she even adds, "Who's there?" Then once again, "Hello." The lights start flickering strangely. She begins to run in fear, but after the third hello, a vampiric creature catches her and drains her blood completely. The figure responsible for this is not clearly shown. When the body is discovered in the morning, Morbius is as shocked as his colleagues. He begins to wonder if it's possible that he killed the nurse while in his vampiric form, as he loses control of his mind and body in that state. It's strange that all of her blood was completely drained. The question of his own mental stability drives Morbius to head to the lab, where he grabs a few bags of synthetic blood before leaving. At the exit, he is confronted by FBI agents who question him about his experiments and decide to arrest him. Morbius immediately defends himself, taking down the agents with a few strikes, then escapes by running up the stairs, dodging bullets from one of the officers. He reaches the hospital roof and is stunned when he feels the air from the AC unit blowing stronger than usual. Before he has the chance to test what this means, he allows the agents to arrest him. I don't understand why he fled at first only to let them arrest him afterward. He is locked up in a detention center in Manhattan and begins serving his days in custody. Morbius is allowed to keep his notes and make calculations to discover that his feeding time has decreased from 6 hours to 4 hours and 22 minutes. When they take him to the interrogation room, he is strapped to a table and Agent Rodriguez arrives with blessed water, just in case. Michael says he needs his blood bag, but the agents don't pay attention. The inspector tells him that he doesn't care about the criminals he killed after taking the serum, but he's interested in why he killed the nurse who has 2 children, twins. Michael responds that he doesn't know. They accuse him of the nurse's death, but Morbius starts losing control and begs for his fake blood bags. The agents don't take him seriously and return him to his cell. Later, Milo visits him, holding a cane in his hand and a package of blood. He introduces himself to the police as a lawyer to get them to release him, but jokes that he never finished law school. He adds that they still don't know where he got all that money from. His parents must have been in some business involving attractive toys, handcuffs, whips, and such. Morbius notices that Milo has forgotten his cane and uncovers the truth. Morbius now realizes that Milo injected himself with the serum, which is why he, too, is cured. At the exit, Milo stops pretending to be disabled and walks perfectly, with flawless reflexes. He also realizes that the nurse wasn't killed by him, but was actually killed by Milo while he was in his vampire form. Angry at himself for having created the serum, Morbius begins to think and is once again terrified by the thought that Milo now has a thirst for blood and is very likely killing other people. Morbius decides that he has to escape from there. Furious, Morbius drinks blood and transforms into his vampire state to escape from the cell through the window. Morbius now realizes that his friend has become his worst enemy. He then leaps across the city, using his echolocation to hear Milo attacking the owner of a newsstand. Morbius immediately heads to confront Milo on the street, calling him a monster. He tells him everything he has been through and adds that he has become a monster just like him. He tries to explain that this is not good news and that they could really be dangerous to others.
Look what you've become.
Despite everything, Milo is not ready. To listen to his friend, he had a long desire to walk. Milo is not the least bit remorseful. He admits to his criminal, bloody instincts and urges Morbius to embrace his powers the way he has. Milo believes this power is incredible and that now they can do whatever they want, so he attacks Morbius to get rid of him. A fierce battle begins, and as the vampires prepare to attack each other, they crash into an underground station, causing civilians to flee in panic. After exchanging a few more blows, Milo celebrates the fact that they have evolved, but Morbius promises to find a way to fix it. At that moment, he comes. The police to arrest them both, but Milo moves quickly and kills them all in a few seconds before doing a little victory dance. Milo wants Morbius to help with his plans, but Morbius refuses and tries to escape. Milo attacks Morbius again as the train approaches. Morbius feels the rush of air caused by the train and jumps in front of it, flying through the tunnels to escape. Look at him fly. It's like Peter Pan.
Peter Pan.
2 police officers come to see what happened. Martine returned from the hospital, unaware that while she's working, Milo is watching her. The next day, Martine feels like someone is following her through the city, so she enters a store to escape through the back door. The one following her is an agent, who has now lost her trail in the crowd, and the shopkeeper doesn't want to tell him where the beautiful girl went, as Martine charmed him nicely. Martine gets on a bus and sees in the newspaper that Morbius is wanted, only for him to suddenly appear behind her.
Michael.
She believes him when he says that Milo took the serum and that he is the real killer of the nurse and other people around the city. They get off the bus and stop by a cafe. While they're talking, Morbius hears 2 criminals harassing the shopkeeper.
There's plenty more where those came from.
They also mention a laboratory, so Morbius decides to use them in a clever way and asks Martine for a few things before following them. After he gets the synthetic blood that Martine provided him, Morbius finds the thugs in a laboratory where they are counterfeiting money. When he politely asks them to give him their lab, one of the thugs tries to attack him with a knife, but Morbius breaks his arm and scares them all. Did you know there are 27 bones in the human hand? When the thug asks who he is, Morbius replies, Venom. While Morbius uses parts of printing machines to create devices he will use to work on a cure for vampirism, Milo prepares to go out. After dancing around the apartment while getting dressed, he heads to a nightclub and flirts with a beautiful woman.
Sir, 2 tequilas, please.
However, a guy approaches, behaves inappropriately, and pushes him. How incredibly stupid he turned out to be. It's unbelievable. You're good, Milo. Unfortunately, a bit crazy, but okay. Milo manages to keep his powers under control and leaves, but waits outside, and when the guy comes out with his friends, he kills them all. A few moments later, Martine goes to Morbius' hospital lab to grab a few things and finds Milo there asking about his friend. Martine swears she doesn't know where Morbius is and forces him to leave. Although Martine is terrified and panicked, Milo doesn't hurt her. Meanwhile, FBI agents raid Martine's apartment, but neither she nor her cat is there. It is then revealed that Martine is hiding with Morbius in a new lab and has brought her cat along. While trying to feed the cat, she accidentally cuts her finger, forcing Morbius to exert extra effort to resist reacting to the scent of her blood. Morbius tells her to cover it quickly, so he doesn't accidentally end up eating her.
How does it feel when you're unread?
Morbius says that something primal is awakening within him, and he's starting to feel the urge to kill. Trust me, Martine, it's the same for you on White. No joke now. I think this also gives us an answer as to why he didn't want to give Milo the serum. He probably already suspected that Milo wouldn't be able to control it. They go to the rooftop, where Morbius tells her he never wanted to become Dracula. The doctor remarks that it's quite romantic. After that, they share a moment and kiss, unaware that Milo is watching them from a distance. The next morning, FBI agents find dead men outside a bar, crack lame jokes, and check the security cameras. They finally discover there's another Dracula in town and realize that Milo is their new, but our familiar, killer. Nicholas sees the news update and grows deeply concerned. Deciding to visit Milo, he pleads with him to stop killing people. Milo is tired of the doctor's pity and, after emphasizing that Morbius was always his favorite, attacks Nicholas, leaving him seriously injured. The man literally took care of him and looked out for him his whole life. Be careful who you give your attention and time to. This is how it is when it disappears. You know? Meanwhile, Morbius manages to develop an antibody that will harm only vampire bodies. He prepares 2 vials, one for Milo and one for Martine, which he plans to use on himself when the time comes.
Who's the second one?
He designed a cure that could reverse the effects of the serum and return them to what they were before injecting it. Milo has become extremely powerful, drinking human blood and killing everyone he encounters. His thirst for blood has grown so intense that he even harmed his lifelong doctor, draining his blood. At that moment, Morbius receives a call from Nicholas, who is asking for help and rushes to Milo's apartment. Unfortunately, Nicholas can only beg Morbius to stop Milo before he dies. Meanwhile, Milo kidnaps Martine and forces her to call out Morbius's name until he hears it through his power. Using echolocation to discover their location, Morbius flies across the city and finds Martine on a rooftop, who is bleeding from injuries inflicted by Milo. Morbius rushes to her and takes her in his arms, realizing she is gravely injured. Milo has become far stronger than Morbius, who is now very weak from relying solely on synthetic blood, while Milo has killed numerous people and consumed their blood. Martine, who is gravely injured, barely finds the strength to speak and tells Morbius he must stop Milo, as Milo has become a monster and will bring chaos to the entire city if he is not stopped. She tells him that if he wants to fight Milo, he must consume human blood, as Milo is incredibly powerful. Our heroine then allows Morbius to drink her blood, knowing she is dying anyway.
Drank the red. Good for you.
Then Milo arrives on the rooftop, and Morbius leaps at him, sending them both tumbling over the edge. The two begin to fight and chaos ensues. These jumps remind me of that movie Jumper of David Race and his jumper friend. On the way down, the vampires continue attacking each other, crashing through several buildings before falling again. Milo strikes Morbius even harder, sending him crashing onto a platform where he grabs his leg and hurls him into a glowing billboard. As Morbius falls once more, Milo leaps onto him, dragging him toward a building before they crash onto the street, only to break through the asphalt and end up in a tunnel. Despite regaining his powers after drinking Martine's blood, Morbius is still far weaker than Milo. Milo easily deflects Morbius's attacks and brutally beats him. When Milo overwhelms him and leaves him with no chance to surpass or overpower him, Morbius recalls something. He remembers the power he gained when he first injected the serum. He was smart, fast, and furious, but there was something more. He had the ability to communicate with bats. After the injection, when he realized he could connect with them, he discovered he could command them to do whatever he wanted. As Milo rages, Morbius sends a powerful echolocation wave through the tunnel with his voice, and then through the water with his hand. Suddenly, a swarm of bats arrives to aid Morbius. When Milo attempts to kill him with a metal rod, Morbius unleashes the bats on him. While the small creatures hold him down, Morbius steps forward and injects him with the antibody, causing Milo to revert to his human form.
You gave me my name.
Hello,
Hello, Milo.
my name's Lucian.
He was also the new Milo. I don't even remember the first Milo.
I remember everything.
Milo apologizes to Morbius before dying. At that moment, FBI agents arrive with the police, and Morbius hides among the bats to safely escape the tunnel. Morbius then departs with the bats, mourning his loved ones and embracing his identity as a vampire. Meanwhile, back on the rooftop, Martine wakes up. We see that Martine is still alive and well. She was gravely injured but has now healed and become just as powerful as Morbius because she, too, has turned into a vampire. She became a vampire after drinking a drop of Morbius's blood when he kissed her. A supernatural force? A divine miracle? This woman is a field of blooming poppies that has intoxicated the doctor. The news reports that a man identified as Adrian Toomes suddenly appeared in an empty cell. He was immediately released, as he had committed no crimes in this universe. If any of you are unfamiliar with this guy, Adrian Toomes, he is the main antagonist of the film and appears in many key scenes in Spider-Man: Homecoming, including spectacular fights with Spider-Man. In the post-credits scene, Dr. Michael Morbius is heading somewhere. Nice car, Doctor. Did you borrow money from the bats? A mysterious spell brings Spider-Man's enemy into view as we see Adrian Toomes, also known as Vulture, transported into Morbius's universe. This is the same character I just told you about. Vulture managed to create his villainous suit after being released from prison and approached Morbius to team up. Morbius asks him what he's doing there, and Vulture replies that Spider-Man is the only reason he's there. He then tells Morbius that there are many people like them out there, and they all have one enemy, Spider-Man. To which Morbius responds, "This will be fun." That's all for this movie. I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel so I can reach 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible. See you in the next video. Goodbye.